everybody is ready to bring a weapon to bear who are not going to have their hands operating the door. So, the response. Each of you who are opening the door roll a d6 for me to see if you succeed. I see from your character sheets that the gnome has a normal strength, so he'll need a 1 or a 2. The cleric has a 17 strength, so he'll do it on a 1, 2, or 3. So the door is stuck. It's not going to automatically open, so they're forcing it open. With 2 people doing it, you get 2 bites at the apple, so tactically it's a good idea. Plus, if you don't open it, you've usually made an amount of noise and alerted anything inside that you're there, so your entry then is going to get a lot more complicated. Eager hands roll the dice. I hope they're eager. This is exciting. And each succeeds in rolling a score low enough to indicate a success. Smiling, the DM continues. Smiling, remember, the Dungeon Master is not playing against the players. The Dungeon Master is happy to reveal the next section, to continue the story. I like that level of detail, letting you know you're on the player's side as far as wanting them to have fun and succeed. That's how you're going to reveal more and more of this dungeon for them. So, it's a good thing to note. The door groans inward, and a blast of cold, damp air gusts into the passage where you are, blowing out both torches. Oh. Here, as about 3 turns have elapsed, the DM rolls a d6 to see if a wandering monster appears. The resulting 5 indicates none. So, timekeeping is important for a Dungeon Master in this edition, because on certain schedules, things happen. Torches will eventually exhaust themselves after an hour. Lanterns will run out of oil and need to be refilled. Eventually, your characters will get hungry or thirsty. There's a timetable for that. And every so often, depending on the dungeon, but usually about every half an hour or 3 full turns, you roll for a wandering monster, something that could come up after players. So, those are key elements in 1st edition Dungeon Mastery. It's important to know. If you're running what would be considered a tournament dungeon, that's all part of the experience, and also part of a way for players to manage their resources and demonstrate, good time management, clock management. The slower they are, the more things that hinder them, the more wandering monsters they come across, the more of their resources they're going to exhaust. So, time is of the essence, really. Although a very well-equipped and methodical party may mitigate some of those disadvantages, but you still will end up usually with more wandering monsters for that. Which can be bad. Some of those wandering monsters can often be pretty nasty. So, party is out of light. The leader thinks quickly. Halfling and gnome, what do you see with your infravision? Should we slam the door? Aha, quick reaction. Because slamming the door reestablishes the barrier. It takes a few seconds for their eyes to adjust to the darkness, and then they tell you that they can detect no creatures. Everything appears to be the same temperature, cold. Infravision saw heat, not necessarily shapes and outlines like dark vision in 5th edition. Important to know. That also means that creatures that are room temperature are not as easy or almost impossible to detect with infravision. Again, the leader. Cleric, it is time to use your light spell. There are no cantrips. That's going to cost him a spell that he would otherwise use for healing, but again, you memorized individual spells in the Vancian magic system, so he would have so many spells that he could memorize. Certainly one or more would be cure light wounds as low-level characters, but the light spell is one that would be a lifesaver in a situation like this. If you can't see, you'd basically be relying on the halfling or the gnome to light your torches for you. It'd be hard to fumble around in the dark to do that. So the cleric uses the light spell. For we'll never get torches lit in this wind. Also a good idea. Cast it on your 10-foot pole. There is a delay while the cleric complies, and then... So, the leader had a good idea. The cleric complied. The cleric could have changed that because The leader doesn't control his character, he just, again, is facilitating. So if the cleric, say, wanted to cast it on his shield, so that it was out on the boss of the shield, say, flaring outward, he could have had that direction instead of the 10-foot pole. 10-foot poles back in the day. We are now poking the bright end of the pole into the place and looking. Tell us what we see. The space behind the door is only rough-hewn and irregular. It appears to be a natural cave of some sort which was worked to make it larger in places. It is about 25 feet across and goes 40 feet south. A small stream about 15 feet wide in one place, but only 6 to 7 feet wide elsewhere, runs south along the far wall. There are 3 buckets and several barrels in the place, but nothing else. Again, irregularities are kind of hard to map, but generally he's saying the room is a rectangle. The mapper is going to have to go with that, and he also didn't say anything about any other ways out of the place. So, check the ceiling and the floor. No more nasty surprises for us. Good thought. If we note nothing unusual, we will check out the buckets and barrels quickly. And aside to the others, this was probably the water supply room for the monastery, so I doubt we'll find anything worthwhile here. Along this, you don't imagine the players are just sitting in silence. They're talking to each other, they're engaging, they're surmising, maybe popping up ideas and floating them to the leader, but even though they're not necessarily all given speaking roles in here, you can count on the whole group being animated about things, as they should be. The skill of individual players oftentimes is what carries a party forward in these kind of scenarios, and not having forethought from at least one of the members can spell doom. Another character. Where's exactly is the wide spot in the stream? I think that I'll check out that pool. The DM tells the player where it is, so he heads over to that place. Now, I'm looking into the water with the bright end of my staff actually thrust into the liquid. What happens? So this is the cleric on their own initiative moving forward. Doesn't need the leader to tell him, although this is generally going to be less common, that an individual player is going to direct something to happen. Also note that oftentimes, this can be where sometimes disaster can strike if an impulsive player directs their character to move off on their own to do some experimentation. Does not have the support of the fighter anywhere around, or those who can see with infravision around, or even anybody with a weapon pointed in his direction in case something lunges out of the pool. So these are players of varying experiences, and the cleric's a little impulsive here. First, the others checking the containers find that they held nothing but water or are totally empty, and that the wood is rotten to boot. You see a few white eyeless fish in various stone formations in a pool of water about 4 feet to 6 feet deep and about 10 feet long. That's all. Do you wish to leave the place now? The leader, yes. Let's get out of here and go someplace where we can find something interesting. Again, the cleric. Wait. If those fish are just blind cave types, ignore them. But what about the stone formations? Are any of them notable? If so, I think we should check them out. The DM, okay, the fish are fish, but there is one group of minerals in the deepest part of the pool which appears to resemble a skeleton. But it's simply... again, the cleric. If the pole will reach, I'll use the end to prod the formation and see if it is actually a skeleton covered with mineral deposits from the water. I know the Shakespearean bit about the sea change. This is, again, drawing on real-life skills and possible knowledge, so cool. The DM, you manage to reach the place, and prodding it breaks off a rib-like piece. You see bone beneath the minerals. As you prod, however, a piece of the formation is caught by the current, a cylindrical piece about a foot long, and it rolls downstream. The leader, run as fast as I can to get ahead of it, jump in and grab it. Quick! Some of you get ready to pull me out of the water. Pull me out if the water is over my head. This is the fighter talking. This is the leader speaking as their character. So, a quick man of action. The DM, you manage to get ahead of the piece, jump into the water about 4 feet deep, and grab at it. But you must roll a d20 to hit to see if you can manage to grasp the object before it is swept past you and goes downstream into the pipe-like tunnel which the stream flows out through. Notice he's doing this very quickly and reacting. He is not letting every single player decide what they are doing. First person says something, the DM acts on it, calls for dice roll, resolves it quickly. Again, very important skill when you have a lot of players. Still a good skill for a lot of DMs anyhow. The player rolls and scores high enough to have hit armor class 4. The value the Dungeon Master has decided is appropriate to the chance of grasping, so the GM continues. You are unlocked this adventure. You have the object, and it seems to be an ivory or bone tube with a waterproof cap. The leader, as soon as my fellows help me out of the stream, we'll examine it carefully, and if all appears okay, we'll dry it off thoroughly and open it very gently. Again, describing how you do something was so important back in the day. If you just said, just open it, the DM would have been in rights to say water got into it, splashed off from the wet player, or the... You see how this goes? A smart and experienced player oftentimes will put in the kind of details that head off disaster. So, the DM, there's nothing difficult involved, so after drying it off on the gnome's cape, you break the seal and pull out the stopper. Inside is a roll of vellum. Vellum is a upgraded form of paper. It's good stuff. The leader, let's get out of here now, shut the door, get some torches going again, and then read whatever is on the scroll. The others agree. Again, you get consensus. And in a few moments, the actions have all been taken care of. Now carefully remove the scroll and see what's on it. Dungeon Master, the tube must have allowed a bit of water to seep in slowly, for there are parts of the scroll that are smudged and obliterated. But you can see it is a map of the passages under the monastery. You recognize the stairs down and the water supply room. It looks as if the eastern portion is smeared beyond recognition, but you see that the south passage runs into a blurred area, and beyond that you can see a large area with coffin-like shapes drawn along the perimeter. That's all you can determine. A certain game master might have a pre-made map all rolled up, possibly treated to look aged, and after drying it out, smudging it with actual water. I like vinegar myself. It makes good clear smudges, blurs things beyond recognition, and handed that to them, possibly by running a candle and smoking it to give it a good smell, or maybe charring the edges a little bit. All kinds of fun tricks that you can do. In this case, he just described again. This Dungeon Master uses their word parts, so that's good. Alright, the leader again. We go back east 20 feet, which takes us back into the entry chamber, and then we'll head south. Down the long corridor there. We will look carefully at the map we found to see if it shows any traps or monsters along our route. You are at the mouth of the passageway south in the center of the south wall of the entry chamber. The map doesn't indicate any traps or monsters, so you go south down the passage. 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet, 60 feet, 70 feet, 80 feet, 90 feet. Again, for the mapper. The passageway is unremarkable, being of stone blocks and natural stone, with an arched ceiling about 15 feet high. So this is no natural cave. This is underneath a monastery, so these are vaulted subterranean passages. At 90 feet, you come into the northern portion of a 50-foot by 50-foot chamber. It is bare and empty. There are no exits apparent. It seems to be a dead-end place. Here, the DM makes a check to see if any wandering monsters come, but the result is a 2 on a d6, so there are none. What are you going to do? Leader, we'll look at our map again. Does this look as if it were the room with the coffin shapes? Certainly not. The place seems to be about where the blotched area is, but there are no passageways out of it. The leader, let's tap along that south wall, especially in the center 30 feet, to see if it sounds hollow. The cleric, gnome, and halfling will do the tapping, while the magic user and I will watch back the way we came. So they have enough people that they can keep an eye to make sure wandering monsters don't come, constant danger in a dungeon, while they focus their efforts on something of interest. With the map, it gives them a clue as to where secret doors certainly are not, and possibly an indication where there might be some, so they're using their resources. The DM rolls a few dice behind the screen several times, knowing the tapping won't show anything, as the secret door is 10 feet above the floor. So, these are what I like to call, well, no, I like to use panic rolls sometimes, where I just roll and leave the players wondering why. The players expect me to roll for the efforts of their characters. Even though I know there's nothing there, I will still make the rolls so as not to tell them for sure that there's nothing there. Remember, characters looking for secret doors, unless they're an elf, only have a 1 in 6 chance of success. That's why you have 3 characters trying at a time to raise your chances. But again, if you don't want to tip your hand and let them know that, yes, there is a secret door there, or no, there isn't, you still make those rolls in secret so the players don't know. Okay, the entire wall sounds very solid, an indication there's probably nothing there. You spend a full 10 minutes thoroughly checking, even to the far east and west, and all 3 are convinced that it is not hollow beyond. This is the DM giving a bit of mercy here and just letting them know not to waste any more time here. However, the gnome who you placed in the middle noticed some strange holes in the wall. There were square places cut into the natural stone, each about half a foot per side and a bit deeper. There were 2 at the 20-foot and 2 at the 30-foot line, one above the other, the lower at about 3 feet and the higher at about 6 feet. He found some small splinters of wood in one. So this is a detail that somebody who was searching the wall would find, whether or not they found a secret door, because there wasn't any secret door. Did the gnome roll particularly well? Probably not. And again, the DM is using fiat to determine who found it. So perhaps he gives the spotlight to the gnome this time for finding it. Maybe next time, because the cleric got to do some cool things in the pool room, maybe the halfling gets the next one. Who knows? The gnome's character. Does the smudged area give us any clue as to what the holes could be for? Let's feel around inside them to see if there are any levers or catches or something. The leader. Yes, look at the map and carefully check those holes with daggers first. We don't want to lose fingers or hands. When all that comes to naught, can anyone think of why there would be wood splinters in the holes? There must be some sort of a clue. Another character. The only thing I can think of is that the holes are sockets for some sort of wooden construction. Leader. Sure, how about a ramp or stairs? How high is the ceiling in this place? Oh, it must be at least 25 feet or more. Leader. Let's form a human pyramid and see if there's a secret door higher up on the wall. Right here in the center where the passage seems to go on southwards. I'll form the base, and the rest of you help the gnome and the halfling up and hold them there. Use the pole while they tap. What do they discover? Now, again, I don't know if there was any collaboration between the leader or not, but this is a quick thinking, quick response to trying to get more information about that setting. It's only going to reach so high, but quite honestly, they're using the resources they have. They don't have a ladder, for instance, with them. So instead, they'll use their various skills and the fact they've got a decent-sized group to try to explore higher. So, the DM, the halfling at the top of the stack has a 1 in 6 chance of slipping and bringing you all down. Roll by DM fiat, again, just saying that this is kind of a precarious position. A roll of 4 follows, so halflings are naturally quite nimble, so it's not that great of a chance. The halfling is small and has good balance, presumably. But it doesn't happen, and both the gnome and the halfling manage a few taps, and even that feeble work seems to indicate some sort of space beyond. So either he gave a higher chance for them to find it, or automatically find the door once somebody is actually at the secret door, which is perfectly legitimate. The leader, let's change the plan a bit. The cleric and I will hoist the gnome up and hold his legs firmly while he checks around for some way to open the secret door. Meanwhile, the halfling and the magic user will guard the entrance so that we won't be attacked by surprise by some monster while thus engaged. Okay, they're splitting their attentions and making sure they're not surprised. That's often a good thing. Okay, the DM, you accomplish the shuffle, and let's see if anything comes. A d6 roll for wandering monsters again gives a negative result. So, no monsters. The guards see nothing, and what's the gnome doing now? From the gnomes player, I'll scan the stone first to see if there are marks or some operating device evident. Because gnomes are quite good at that. Some stone projections seem rather smooth, as if worn by use. That's all you were able to note. Then I'll see if I can move any of those stone knobs and see if they operate a secret door. I'll push, pull, twist, turn, slide, or otherwise attempt to trigger the thing if possible. The fist-sized projection moves inward, and there is a grinding sound, and a 10-foot by 10-foot section of the wall, 10 feet above the floor in the center part, swings inward to the right. From the gnome, I'll pull myself up into the passage revealed, and then I'll see if I can drive in a spike and secure my rope to it, so I can throw the Freon down toward the others. DM, you get up all right, and there's a crack where you can pound in a spike. As you're doing it, you might be in for a nasty surprise, so I'll let you roll a 6-sider for me to see your status. Make the roll. Groans as a 1 comes up, indicating surprise. The DM then rolls 3 attacks for the ghoul that grabbed at the busy gnome. And 1 claw attack does 2 hit points of damage and paralyzes the hapless character, whereupon the DM judges that the other 3 would rend him to bits. However, the DM does not tell the players what has happened, despite impassioned pleas and urgent demands. He simply relates, you see a sickly gray arm strike the gnome as he's working on the spike. The gnome utters a muffled cry, and then a shadowy form drags him out of sight. What are you others going to do? The leader, ready weapons and missiles. The magic user, her magic missile spell, and watch the opening. No immediate rush to go and help the character. This is a bit more practical than oftentimes is done these days. There's no death saves or anything to help out the character. If the character is helpless and there are 3 active ghouls with claws and bite attacks, it's realistic that a low-level gnome, no matter which class he is or she is, will get shredded very quickly. And the DM doesn't even need to roll for that. It's the DM's determination. The character, at the mercy of 3 ghouls, will have his or her throat torn out and start being consumed. So that is how dungeoneering could go. So you hear some nasty rending noises and gobbling sounds, but they end quickly. Now you see a group of gray-colored human-like creatures with long dirt and blood-encrusted nails and teeth bloodied and bared coming to the opening. As they come to the edge, you detect a charnel smell coming from them. 4 of them, in fact. And we end with, what will the party do? Will the cleric realize they are ghouls and attempt to turn them? Will he succeed? If not, there may well be no survivors. Ghouls are nasty. If so, what treasure lies beyond? Possibly the great gem, but the thief still awaits the party's return. Well, that is the stuff of which adventures are spun, and now you know how to spin your own. So, very informative, and a very good insight, I feel, into how games have developed, progressed, how, again, Mr. Gygax imagined his games would be played as an exploration where the players would use creativity and quick thinking in order to overcome obstacles. The DM would facilitate it with quick thinking of their own and quickly calling for what is necessary to keep the suspense up and the action moving forward. Could the entire action have been dragged down by lots of debate and talking, or was that just skip through? Sure, I've had groups that paralyze themselves whenever there's two doors to look at. But still, this is how the first creators of the game imagined encounters to go. Maybe because of numerous play tests of their game. Maybe it was because of just a sense of this is the experience we want to drive forward. This is the kind of excitement and adventure we want, where the risk of harsh death is there, but at the same time, you're questing for great rewards and power, and by quick thinking, you survived these things. It's a different time, but hopefully you come away with a sense of, something like this would be cool to be a part of, where you can use your knowledge, your quick thinking, and get a real sense of personal victory over this. Not just because you rolled well, but sometimes because you outwitted a particular challenge, or your pre-planning helped to stop a grisly end for your characters and your party. This was a lot of the experience of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Some of those skills kind of fading away with a flurry of dice rolls and rules that seem to cover almost everything. In this case, the rules didn't cover a great deal, and the players were frequently encouraged to go beyond the rules, which really were just combat, honestly, and resource management. And that would be the stuff of the adventures. The characters' inventiveness, the characters' creativity, cleverness, and curiosity, driving forth adventure and discovery. So, even though there wasn't a great deal of combat in there, again, it shows a sample of kind of the old school approach of, I'm going to do something, the DM quickly decides it, I roll, we find out the resolution, then move on to the next. It doesn't necessarily, you can try things that you don't necessarily have a skill for. The magic user didn't have a skill in grab, spider, and throw. They just rolled a die. If the DM thought it was enough, it worked. So that's first edition. That is the world their way. How the creators of Dungeons & Dragons imagined an exploration party going along. So thanks for joining me, and we'll be doing this again, I think. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time here in the Lair of Omnici with myself, your humble host, Rob. Thanks and farewell.